Hi, I'm Jackie Tantillo, and this is Should Have Listened to My Mother. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother. And do us a favor, if you could, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or check us out on YouTube and subscribe and follow on other social media platforms. You can find us wherever you listen, which is so nice and handy. Generally, we go through a lengthy process in trying to find guests for the show. Some potential guests are interested yet hesitant to speak about their mom. Some are not interested at all, and then there are some guests that are so excited to come on, and that means the world to Should Have Listened to My Mother. Gerry Strain is one of those guests that just stands out. It's just his genuine, happy attitude. He says he feels blessed and lucky to have been influenced by so many women in his life. So it's a pleasure to have Gerry on the show. I wanted to share some of his email responses as we are getting ready to make the arrangements to record. And Gerry's first response is, "This is obviously a podcast with a difference for me, so I'm honored to be invited." Gerry also responded in an email saying that I'd say the 3 or 4 biggest female influences in my life have been my Nana, Josephine, my wife, Jennifer, my mom, Catherine, and aunt, Marie. He continues, "If I could add my latest inspirations, I'd need to include my daughter, Grace. She amazes me and has taught me the true meaning of love. I also have a member of staff I admire greatly, too, as well as several previous members of staff who are incredible females." Gerry, spelled with a G, Gerry Strain is joining us from Scotland. He is the owner of Document Solutions, Business Solutions, and he's also the director of the Scottish football club, Hamilton Academical Football Club, founded in 1874. He is also a former football agent and successful former football soccer player, as we say here in the U.S. He was told that he was the man of the house at 8 years old, has a younger brother, and was raised by a single mom. Didn't have much growing up, very humble beginnings, yet was aware of the significance of taking care of others who perhaps had less than he, or maybe they just needed to be acknowledged. His grandmother used to walk 50 miles a day back and forth to work. She cleaned houses till she was 74. From a young age, Gerry knew his mindset was very important, and he knew he was a survivor. Gerry Strain, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on Should Have Listened to My Mother.
Thank you, Jackie.
How's Scotland? I wish I was there. I was there earlier in 24, but it is such a beautiful country. It is indeed.
Yeah, it's a lovely country. Today, it's the sun's out, which makes it nicer. But the temperature's not so great. It's only 15 degrees Celsius at the moment, so that's quite warm for this time of year. But it's the climate in Scotland's not without its challenges, Jackie.
Absolutely. But your family immigrated from Ireland, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So my grandmother and her family, they fled Ireland just around the time of the Civil War, when Ireland was invaded by England many years ago, and a partition kicked in 1921. But when the Free State of Ireland was formally kind of represented, and that caused further conflict. So my nana and her kind of family had to flee. And they found themselves arriving in Scotland. So there's an awareness of the kind of heritage and the cultural fabric of my family that I'm keen to maintain. Make sure my kids are proud of our heritage as well. So it's played a big part in their lives.
And that will never go away. You don't forget all of what they struggled and what they went through.
It won't go away, because certainly in my lifetime I wouldn't allow it to go away. It's something I'm really proud of, and I just only hope through the education of my kids it's something that they want to maintain and pass on to their children as well. But it's like everything, the memories only die if you let them die. So I think that from my perspective, it's important that I give my kids as much of an education as I can and make sure that they have as much affinity as they can with their cultural heritage and where we actually come from.
You were born in Scotland.
Yeah, that's correct.
You call yourself a Scot?
I do, yes, I do. I regard myself. I'm proud to be Scottish. It's a great. I think the Scottish people are great people. I'd very much be a nationalist in my view. I'm not. It's quite a complex political situation in the UK. Some call themselves British, some call themselves Scottish or English, or they prefer a defined nationality.
Mm-hmm.
I would be of the defined nationalist nature. I'd be a Scottish nationalist. Yeah.
Do you still have family in Ireland?
Yes, I've probably got just
Many.
as much family in Ireland as yeah. It's quite bizarre. So we've got a big family. We've got a lot of family who are spread out all over Ireland, and equally I've got a reasonably sized family in Scotland, and it's actually getting around them that's the challenge. You don't have enough time to go and visit everyone that you want to go and visit.
Sure.
But ironically, from a business perspective, I've probably got a bigger business network in Ireland than I do in Scotland, because I spent so much time there as a kid,
mm-hmm.
and I've built so many relationships over there that I've maintained. There's a lot of similarities though between the Scottish and the Irish cultures. They call them the Celts.
I'm so happy to hear that you are embracing all of this history and this culture, because family to me is the most important thing. And your family can be extended to friends, and it's just genealogy that's important.
Yeah.
So it was remarkable, your response about the women in your life. I would love to, because you were raised by a single mom. Your mom is Catherine,
yeah.
And your mom is still with us.
Yeah, she is. My mum's my mum's great. She brought myself and my brother up largely on her own. So her and my father separated. I was only a very, very young kid. And Scotland at the time, there wasn't, they call them the Thatcher years politically. Mm-hmm. It was, Scotland was stripped. It was stripped of its industry. So in terms of skilled labour, there wasn't massive amounts of it going around, and my mum unfortunately struggled. So she had 3 or 4 jobs to try and sustain some sort of lifestyle for my brother and I, which wasn't easy for her. And when I say sustain some sort of lifestyle, we weren't rich by any manner of means. It was a treat for us was a delivery from the Indian restaurant on a Friday or a Saturday evening. And the 3 of us would sit on the floor and share out of the one bowl. I distinctly remember the cost of the food as well, which is it's quite surreal. But that was a treat that we had as a family.
Wow.
And that's something that will live with me.
Can you tell us, sorry to interrupt, the jobs that your mom had? And she must have worked all crazy hours.
Yeah, well, her jobs were largely, she was largely a cleaner. Mm-hmm. And she also worked in a nursing home as a support assistant. So my mum, I think, certainly I wasn't around at the time when my mum left school, obviously. But at that time, you could leave school and walk into a job, into factories and whatnot. So my mother left school and went straight into employment. And obviously, with going through the years of Thatcher stripping industry in Scotland, these factories one by one were depleted or removed, and by default, so many people found themselves unemployed, of which my mum was one of them. So our skill, if you like, was in the kind of cleaning role or as a care assistant. She was also a home help as well. Mm-hmm. And what that basically is the local authority or the council would have staff that would go around people's houses that were elderly or infirm, and they would cook for them, they'd clean for them, and go and buy their groceries and so on. Uh-huh. So my mother fulfilled that role. But I distinctly remember her working day, so she'd be away in the mornings before my brother and I would go to school. She'd be out the home help work lasted her until mid-afternoon, and then she would catch a bus to another place of employment about 9-10 miles from the house, and she would work there to 7 or 8 at night, then come home, and our working patterns would shift between that and doing cleaning jobs.
Oh my gosh.
She's very hard working. She's a very kind of caring woman, but I think the challenges of being a single mum and having 2 boys were quite significant. I never had my relationship with my mum was strained, and it was challenging. So I was actually probably a lot closer to my grandmother than I was my mum. My brother and my mother are very, very close, but he was a baby of the house, so I completely understand that.
Why was it strained between you and your mom? Because of the pressures of putting food on the table and...
No. It was more to do with, when I look at it through adult eyes, I can understand it better. I was aware who my father was, and I was also aware that, my dad one day didn't seem to be there. But I actually missed having a father figure in my life. I needed a dad. And I was used to having a dad for my early formative years. He certainly had plenty of experiences with him, so I was conscious that he was no longer there. I think because I had a desire for my dad to be in my life, that was a source of frustration for my mum, because of the way the separation kicked about and my dad's conduct, and it was quite a messy situation.
Were you blaming your mom for him leaving?
No, not at all. I wasn't. Not at all. I wasn't. That was never ever part of the equation. It was more to do with, when I look at it through adult eyes, I think my mum resented the fact that I wanted my dad in my life when she was doing everything she could to provide for us and keep us.
Yeah.
So it was almost she maybe felt insulted. I don't know. It's not a conversation that I've actually directly had with her, because ultimately it leads to both of us having a difference of opinion. But if I'm looking at it as impartially as I can, I think it was more a disappointment that I wanted to have a dad in my life when she was doing all she could to provide for us.
Right, because he wasn't there for you.
Yeah, he was never there. Yeah, he wasn't any great source of support from my mum. She had to do everything by herself, and she relied heavily on her family and my nana, Josie. But I still wanted a dad in my life, and I can understand where that frustration comes from. So it was certainly, now I'm looking at it as a 45-year-old man, it gave me an education, that I can now apply to my own life and my own role as a father.
So would you ever open the door to this conversation with your mom today, or you don't even need to go back there to resolve?
I think from my perspective, I'd speak to anyone about anything, because I think conversation is good. But I just think that from my mum's perspective, there's a closed door that's locked. So it's just it is what it is. I don't have any resentment towards my mother. I've got nothing but affection and love for her. But there's absolutely no resentment at all. But I just think when you've got 2 completely different perspectives on each other's reality, then it's always going to be hard to find that gap, that bridge.
Yeah. So how would your mom, in all of her exhaustion and frustration with, financial issues and situations, how would she cut loose? She had to have something to shake the days off, the years off, the decades off.
Yeah.
What did she do?
To be honest, I don't think she never really did.
She didn't go to the pub?
No. I think I can only recall one occasion that my mum went to a pub. Genuinely, the admiration piece that I have for her was her life consisted of working and coming home.
Wow.
We spent a lot of time with my nana. That was the downtime, was being with my nana. My grandfather, my papa died in 1986, and my mum and my papa were very close to each other. And since then, her and my nana became really close. We were basically my nana's second home, and she played a significant part in the upbringing of my brother and myself. She was always there for us. So if my mum had to work a night shift or had to work inordinate hours, my nana would come up to our house and look after us, or we would go to her house and stay over. Yeah, so it was an interesting childhood. We understood poverty, with a clear understanding of poverty. And I think that both my brother and myself knew from an early age that you're part of a fight or flight scenario, and we knew which one was going to be our option. None of us were particularly fast runners, so you had to fight. Flight wasn't an option.
Oh my gosh, you had to defend yourselves. You had to constantly. Yeah. Did you win more than lose?
Yeah. I think even to this very day, Jackie, it still feels the same. It still feels that you have to
prove yourself.
I genuinely believe that. Yeah. I think you always. It's part of social conditioning, whether it's the upbringing you've got, the social circle that you keep, and then how that ties in with your aspirations. So if I look at myself, I've got the same circle of people in my life that I've had all my life, because they're in that circle because I know they love me and I know they care about me. I'm talking about my friends here, but my own personal aspirations are to be as financially secure as I possibly can and earn as much money as I can, and I like to do a lot of positive things with the wealth that I generate. I don't want to be wealthy so that I can be the wealthiest guy in the room. I want to be wealthy so that I can make a difference to the lives of others. And there's a saying, I don't know if you've got it in the States, but there is a saying that your network is your net worth. And purely by conditioning, my network has always been working class, almost socialist, real people. And I still have them around me.
You don't need more than each other's love and company and support.
No, you don't. Money's irrelevant. It's your word and your bond and your giving of your time or energy to someone is worth more than anything, I think. But I don't view myself as an arrogant person. But I've met with people in the royal family. I've met with people in massive corporate positions in the UK, and I don't feel inferior to anyone in any way. And sometimes that can be a source of conflict when you're faced with people that have got a high opinion of themselves. I think we're all equal. I don't have any issue with claiming to be my equal, because I believe that we genuinely are. But when you move into the business world, or particularly in the world of soccer, there's an element of snobbery that really gets on my goat. It's jobs for the boys, and if I use the word corruption, I need to use it in the right context. But these organisations are set up to keep people like myself or people from my backgrounds to keep us at arm's length.
Oh my goodness.
That's just the reality.
All these life lessons that you have taken with you, whether in business, right, and personally, what is the role that your mom played in your life? Significant role? Would you be obviously totally different if you didn't have the struggles that you had growing up?
Oh, I'd be completely different, because I only look at my own son as an example, and he's not experienced any struggle in his life. Whereas for myself and my brother, I can't speak for my brother Anton, but I know when we speak to each other, the commonality that we share is that we knew we were in a struggle, as kids, and we never knew what was coming next. We weren't academic, either of the two of us. We were good at school, but we weren't academic. There was more onus on go and work, go and earn money. So we were both entrepreneurial from a young age. Mm-hmm. Selling sweets round the doors from, I don't know if you get selection boxes in the States at Christmas time. You get packs of different sweets and so on.
That you can buy or subscribe to.
Yeah. Yeah. And every Christmas, our family would give us maybe 15, 20 selection boxes. So that would give you about 60 bars of chocolate, and we would go and sell them round the doors to try and get some pocket money, because the value of money was greater than the value of sweets. So we were entrepreneurial from a young age, and we figured it out. So I guess the role my mum played was significant in the sense that we had to learn fast. The role that my nana played in my life was completely different. She played a mothering role where I was really close to her. I could tell her anything. I mean, genuinely, Jackie, I could have robbed a bank and committed 15 murders, and my nana would have said I was innocent. Do you know? she she would have found a way to defend me,
Josie.
and then aye, and then she would have dealt with me in her own way after it. Do you know? So she's a great woman, very very strong. She's very staunch in her beliefs and in her convictions, and the loyalty thing. She taught me a lot about loyalty in terms of giving and giving loyalty and what you should expect back, and where to draw your lines. So they're completely different relationships, but they're two very strong women.
What were some of your mom's strengths, other than her determination or commitment to put the food on the table?
I think now our biggest strength was almost our biggest weakness as well, and it's one that I can relate to because I share the same defects, and it's the generosity and the giving piece.
Oh, that's a good strength and not a weakness.
It's a weakness when you do it to a fault. When you're giving for the wrong reasons. Yeah. Aye, and it's something I relate to because I'm guilty of the same myself. But I actually think that comes through an insecurity. You know, because sometimes the giving is because you're looking for that dopamine hit or that nourishment that you don't have in your life, and you only get it through giving, and often that's why people that give the most don't have much. That's my learned experience of it as an adult. So yeah, my mum's resilience was good. She's a lovely people person.
Did she have other girlfriends? Did she ever spend time with any friends and just relax and not work?
She's probably not, no. I think she certainly, there was times she didn't work, but relaxing for my mum was probably being at home with one of her friends coming into the house. We lived in Scotland, we call them schemes. I don't know what you call them in the States, like estates or ghettos, or I don't know what you call them.
Row houses, we lived in a scheme. Or all the houses connected?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's in flats, they're kind of flats. Sure. And yeah. So my mum's social life consisted of one or two neighbours coming into the house for a chat and a cup of tea. But there was a real sense of community where we were brought up. None of us really had any wealth, so it wouldn't be uncommon for someone to open the window and shout out, "Does anyone have tea bags? Does anyone have sugar? Does anyone have milk?" And someone
literally would open the window and yell out to the neighbours.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty great.
That was a common occurrence. That was a common occurrence. Yeah, but that was just part of growing up. It wasn't exclusive to me and my brother. That was part of the community that you were in.
As oppressive and unfortunate as it was for you to have to live in those conditions when everything was tight and worrying about putting food on the table, the loyalty is there. Like you said, you still hang out with the same group of people that you've been with for your entire life almost. And that is not a general occurrence for many, many people.
Yeah, well, I view that as a privilege, though, Jackie. So the people I grew up with are the people who are my friends. And when I say friends, I mean the people that I'm close to, I've got a connection with. I'm in a very blessed and privileged position through the football, through having built my own business, that sometimes I've got a disposable income that I can attend an event and I bring them with me as a night out or as an experience for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my way of giving them back, because they're the people that are always honest with me. Do they're the people that I know they're not around me because they think I've got money or because they think they can get anything from me. They're around me because they're around me for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And that's something that I hope I take that to.
Well, I think your mom and Nana taught you those things to make sure you stick with the right people, not chasing the wrong things to better yourself.
No, I'd agree with that.
Oh, my goodness.
I'd agree with that. And I think that's obviously part of the attraction of where I found in my wife. as you look for those same values.
Mm-hmm.
There's a connection, and you look for the values in someone that you admire and relate to.
Yeah.
And my wife's, that's where, that's where she's just been amazing for me. I think that we could get divorced in the morning, but I would, I'd love her to the day that I die because of how she is.
Yeah,
she's
that was a joke, right? That you could get divorced in the morning.
No, that's
true. That might be.
It wasn't a joke. That's I'm not aware of any lawsuits, but
I'm sorry.
but no. The reality is that anything can happen. But I think that the salient point in it is that, if things hadn't to work out with my wife, I would love her to the day that I die because of the impact she's had in my life, because of how she's brought up our kids and nurtured our kids, and how she goes about her day-to-day life.
Right.
Marriage certainly isn't easy. I don't know if you're married or not, but it's a challenge, and it's
right. This is Jennifer, your wife, right? Jennifer.
Jen, yeah, and we could probably have been divorced 10 times over. I've been married since 2010, but in the last 14, 15 years, there's ups and downs and all sorts of things happening.
Life happens.
Yeah, it does. And things get in the way, and people make mistakes, and things happen that shouldn't happen. But when you examine what you have,
mm-hmm.
and if you appreciate it, then there's a different decision to be made as to why you're still in that relationship. And I genuinely, my wife's probably the strongest person that I know.
Well, you picked the right gal then, right?
Yeah, aye. I think she maybe picked me.
Wait a minute, I have one last question for your mom, about your mom. Because there's a lot of other women that you wanted to talk about, but we don't have time today on this episode. Yeah. I should have listened to my mother. What was your mom's biggest dream for you?
I don't think she had one. My mum, that's part of the frustration we probably got with each other. Scotland, when I was growing up, and from going over to Ireland when we were growing up, you're advised to get a job with the national grid, like the electric company or what have you. Or basically get a job and try your best to work your way up, so you could retire. Now, in Scotland, because of the political climate, there's an anti-Irish element. So if you're Irish, it was hard to get a job. If you had a Catholic-sounding name, it was hard to get a job, and it was hard to get a promotion. So I was acutely aware, and even to this day, it still happens, but not to the same degree. That there's an element of discrimination goes on, and I think because of that social conditionings then get an impact on different people in different ways. And for the vast majority of Roman Catholics of Irish descent, it was almost like know your place. So they were unskilled labourers, they were navvies, they were cleaners. That was the roles that you'd normally occupy in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of that social conditioning, it was hard for people to have a dream. That's my opinion of it looking back. It would have been hard for my mum to envisage me being, a director of a football club, having my own company that's doing okay, but me being an employer, as a Roman Catholic from an Irish heritage in Scotland, the thought of that being real to my mum probably was never something she could have envisaged. And it's certainly something that my grandmother would never have envisaged either. So Scotland's changed a lot, which is obviously reflected in the opportunity that exists now for people that didn't before. So you can have dreams for your family. You can have dreams for your kids and your partners, and there's pretty much nothing that you can't put your mind to and achieve now, because the tools are at our disposal through the internet, through social media and apps and so on.
Mm-hmm.
This very podcast, the fact that I'm speaking to someone thousands of miles away in a different continent would have been very difficult, 15, 20 years ago, never mind back when my mum was looking to...
Oh, it's a different world. Different world.
Yeah, totally different world. So
yeah.
I think to answer that question, I think the only dream my mum could have had for myself and my brother would have been that we weren't poor and that we weren't that we were as healthy as we could be, and maybe that we had jobs. She wanted us both to be good fathers.
Yeah.
I was aware of that. She was aware of she had a great father herself, and I think she was aware of the need for a family to be a unit.
Well, it seems like she accomplished that mission.
Yeah, definitely.
When you think of your mom, I'm trying to envision her. Do you see her smiling or do you see her sad?
I actually see her. I see her quite lonely. When I envisage her, I see her as being quite lonely. Maybe unfulfilled is how I envisage her. So I think because she's not had a charmed life. Certainly in the years that matter. Every year matters, but probably in the years that matter most, she never, been left alone with 2 kids, in a damp house, and then having school uniforms to buy and having food to put on the table. Yeah, that the thoughts that she must have taken to her bed at night must have been, depressing.
And she never found another partner, another mate? Didn't want one?
No, she did. She had a couple. She finally remarried in 1998, I think it was.
Well, I hope she's happy.
Yeah, so do I. That's important.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Gerry Strain, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. And we did try to do this before and it didn't happen. So I'm really glad that we circled back and made it happen.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the nostalgic journey you've taken me on. It's because there's every day I practice gratitude. So you've actually given me a lot to be grateful for.
Well, I'm grateful that you were open enough to share this story, and hopefully we can all learn from these stories. That's why I do this. I'm the lucky one. But it's food for thought, which is great.
Yeah, I think the day we realise we're all lucky just to be here is it's a good day.
Yeah, it's a good day. Oh, Gerry Strain, thank you again. And we will be back next week with another episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother.